Donald Trump has announced, if elected, he will end birthright citizenship of children of illegal immigrants. It's a bold claim. Some say it's impossible. Others say it is possible. He failed to do it in his first term, but I do believe he will likely be able to pull this off in his second term. And I believe it's the right thing. It is insane to me that we are one of the only nations on the planet, I think it's like 3, that someone can be a tourist, give birth, and we're like, you're a citizen and entitled to everything everyone has to offer you. It's like, wait, hold on there a minute. The person's not a citizen, not subject to our jurisdiction. They had a kid here. I do agree that in general, someone born here should be a citizen. I also think we need to set restrictions in law as to what it means. If you're a tourist here on a temporary visa, no. Perhaps if you're a legal permanent resident, yes. I don't think the answer is so simple to say just to be like, if your parents aren't citizens, you're not a citizen, right? I think there's issues where, I don't know, we go middle of the road route. Someone who enters the country legally, then they're here legally, living, working, and they're just not citizens, but they have a kid. That kid, yeah, maybe that makes sense. Well, let me know what you think. What doesn't make sense? Someone illegally crosses the border, breaking the law, then immediately has their kid, and now that kid's a citizen? Then they deport them all. The kid turns 18, comes back as a citizen, and then sponsors their family to come across the border. This system doesn't make sense and doesn't work. If we were all pitching in and paying taxes, taking tests and upholding our social obligations, how can we allow anyone just to come here without doing that? Here's the story from the Daily Caller. Former president and 2024 presidential contender Donald Trump pledged to end birthright citizenship for the children of illegal immigrants in a video posted to Twitter Tuesday. Trump vowed that on his first day in office, if he's elected president, he will sign an executive order that the children of illegal immigrants won't be eligible for citizenship, according to his social media video. A wave of illegal immigration began. We get it. It's all the things like this that bring millions of people to our country, and they enter our country illegally. My policy will choke off a major incentive for continued illegal immigration, deter more migrants from coming, and encourage many of the aliens Joe Biden has unlawfully let into our country to go back to their home countries. They must go back. Nobody could afford this. Nobody could do this. And even morally, it's so wrong, Trump said. Now, there are questions about this. Birth tourism. I think it's a bad thing. Can he actually do it? Here's the video. I'll just play a quick snippet for you. Agenda 47.
Joe Biden has launched an illegal foreign invasion of our country, allowing a record number of illegal aliens to storm across our borders. From all over the world they came. Under Biden's current policies, even though these millions of illegal border crossers have entered the country unlawfully, all of their future children will become automatic U.S. citizens. Can you imagine? They'll be eligible for welfare, taxpayer-funded health care, the right to vote, chain migration, and countless other government benefits, many of which will also profit the illegal alien parents. This policy is a reward for breaking the laws of the United States and is obviously a magnet helping draw the flood of illegals across our borders. They come by the millions and millions and millions. They come from mental institutions. They come from jails, prisoners, some of the toughest, meanest people you'll ever see.
Now, I believe that's politicking right there. Some of these people are just economic migrants. They're like, hey, you're going to have a kid, go to America and have the kid. If they can get across the border and have the kid, or, I mean, in some cases, they can probably bring a newborn child across the border and claim it was born in the United States. What do you do? How do you adjudicate this? I bring you now to birthright citizenship in the U.S. from Wikipedia to break down exactly what this is. The 14th Amendment Citizenship Clause says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Here's where it all comes to a head. Many of these pro-illegal immigration individuals, well, they never call it illegal immigration. They call them migrants and asylees because they're lying to manipulate you, tugging on your emotions. They argue that the 14th Amendment covers them and they're automatically citizens. It doesn't. And it's an insane interpretation of the 14th Amendment. Illegal immigrants aren't subject to our jurisdiction. They're subject to the jurisdiction of their home countries. They make the argument that as soon as you cross the border, you're subject to our jurisdiction. That's only technically correct because we have a right to defend our country. If you're not a citizen of here, though, and we detain you, a foreign country intervenes and supersedes or attempts to. So, if someone from, say, Honduras illegally enters the U.S., they are subject to Honduran jurisdiction. We would typically deport them back to Honduras for that reason. If they have a child, that child is not subject to our jurisdiction unless we just decide under the 14th it is, creating a circular logic. But it makes no sense. Why do that? The point of this was that let me read a little bit. The amendment overrode the Supreme Court decision in Dred Scott v. Sanford that denied U.S. citizenship to African Americans, whether born here or not, and whether a slave or a free person. Pursuant to the 14th Amendment and the Immigration and Nationality Act, a person born within and subject to the jurisdiction of the U.S. automatically acquires U.S. citizenship, known as jus soli, right of the soil. This includes the territories of Puerto Rico and the Marianas, Guam and Northern Mariana Islands. They say there's also jus sanguinis. Sanguinis, I believe it is, the right of blood. What this was supposed to do was that in this country, there were slaves. They were subject to U.S. jurisdiction, meaning no other country had jurisdiction over them. They weren't citizens anywhere else. And when it came to questions of law, police could apprehend slaves and things like that. It's horrifying. I'm glad we did away with all that, as most people are. This country did the right thing in fighting a civil war, which ultimately destroyed a horrifying institution. Then, after these, and mind you, Dred Scott was, I think it was pre-Civil War. Dred Scott was 1857. This is pre-Civil War. The 14th Amendment was adopted because they were outright saying, no, these people were born here, they're citizens. Bang. It was never meant to imply that anyone could show up, have a kid, and that kid's a citizen. It was always meant to imply that people who were born and lived here were citizens. It specifically was referring to people who were slaves. In fact, it even denied Native Americans. They mentioned this here. Let me see if, where do we have it here? They mentioned that, here we go. Birthright citizenship was later extended. The quote, subject to the jurisdiction thereof clause excluded Native Americans living under tribal sovereignty and U.S. born children of foreign diplomats. Birthright citizenship was later extended to U.S. born Native American subjects by the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924. They would say, if you're a foreign diplomat and you come here, and then you have a kid with your wife, or you are the woman and you have a kid, that kid is not a citizen because you are subject to a different jurisdiction. How does it change all of a sudden when the person enters the country illegally? It makes no sense. I believe under this interpretation, Donald Trump could actually just come out and say, no, from now on, you are not a citizen just because you were born here. Okay. I believe it's very likely that that'll be the case. It'll be challenged, of course. The Supreme Court may just uphold it. I don't know, and we'll see. I imagine, like Roe v. Wade, it will go through a series of trials. It'll take a year or two, and then finally we will be hit with a bang. And they'll say, no more. This is the first step in restoring community to this country. We cannot just have people who don't share our values randomly showing up. It doesn't make sense. We need sound policy as it pertains to citizenship, what it means to be a citizen. And I believe we need some civic responsibility for those who intend to vote. I think, what was Vivek Ramaswamy saying? He was saying something about a civics test for people 18 to like 25 or something like that. I don't think a test makes sense. The idea he had on the Culture War podcast when I was talking to him was that once you sign up for selective service, you get a voter ID. I think that's a really good idea, actually. You don't have to sign up, but men and women, if you want to vote, you have to. I think it's a great idea. Men and women can be like, I ain't signed up for selective service. Then we go, okay, that's it. The only requirement is you do. It's a really, 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 really good idea. It's very simple. All guys have to anyway. So now you just say, anyone who expects to vote should be signed up for selective service. I'm not a fan of the draft, but at the very least, you'd get a whole bunch of lefties be like, I ain't signing up for that. Okay, well, you don't have to. You just don't vote because you're not engaging in civic responsibility to this country. Everybody else should. And I think Vivek was saying something like there should be no expectation of a draft. And I'm like, no, maybe there will be. But if the country is only people who sign up to be drafted can vote, I think this country would do a whole lot better. I don't like the draft. I think the volunteer military is better. But I understand sometimes it may be, when you're facing an existential crisis. At this point, the country is so fractured, namely because of the 14th, because of the citizenship clause specifically. It creates a bunch of different pocket communities that don't care about each other. And thus nobody wants to defend each other. We can't function that way. We'll see if Trump could actually pull it off if he gets elected. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up tonight at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimcastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.